supporting the second motion after the first motion was withdrawn. I did not vote on that, and I didn't vote on anything actually, and it's hard for Jeannie, who was sitting in the wings, to correctly find out who had voted ayes and that. I'm going to make a suggestion with the situation in the auditorium here especially, that after motions are voted upon, we have a roll call vote so we can get an official tabulation. Thank you. So I'd like that correction.
Second motion.
I never voted one way or another.
Correct, but my point being, when the second motion was made, and we found out that Don made the second motion, I believe, correct? Who made the first? She made the first and the second.
I made the first motion and Don seconded it.
And then it was rescinded.
And that was rescinded. I made the second one and Don seconded it.
For the
And
second one, I
the
thought,
tabulation came up that everybody had voted in the positive. That is incorrect.
and I agree with you because that's one of my issues as well, but I thought that you took it off the table and no one was voting for it at that point when you rescinded it.
Right.
So I don't think there was any vote taken. That's my confusion here. I'm not,
For the first one, there was no vote taken because it was removed. But what you're saying is for the second motion, you didn't vote, right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's what he's saying.
I don't
It
remember,
was
that's what I'm saying.
not a 5-0.
I know we read statements. I don't remember any of us voted. That's why I'm asking you. I'm
The
confused.
second motion was to, what we were calling choice learning in person versus e-learning, to give that choice to our families.
I apologize. See, that's where my confusion was, Howard. I didn't understand what second vote I apologize, y'all. I could not remember for the life of me what that second vote was. So the second vote, you're saying when we voted for e-learning, or I'm sorry, for choice, you're saying that the four of us voted yes for choice and you did not have a chance to vote, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. I apologize. I did not understand how that was all coming out, so I appreciate you taking the time to explain that because now I understand. Thank you. Does that mean we want to discuss the other point now, or do you want me to wait until later? Because my question is on all of that as well. I'm curious why it was even left on the agenda, because...
We're just approving the.
Yeah.
That's all.
Approval, deletions, and additions.
Gotcha, okay, let's stop then.
I would like to make a motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Baxter.
Second.
And then a second from Ms. Leslie. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Now we'll move on to correspondence. Mr. Marshall, may
Yes,
I?
I believe our Madam President has a statement.
So I would like to say something in regards to the last board meeting and to the correspondence I have received from our community. To our teachers, administration, and school staff, on behalf of myself and the board, we want to thank you for your unwavering passion and loyalty to Lake Central. I want to say that I am sorry and I am disappointed that I failed to speak up at our last board meeting when some of our community made hurtful and unkind comments about you, our teachers, staff, and administrators. Please know that without a doubt, we value you and know how important you are to each and every child, family, and our community. Without you, our schools would not be a highly rated, sought-after district. The Lake Central Corporation is privileged to have such passionate and loyal teachers and staff. We do not take that for granted. Thank you for all that you do for Lake Central. Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
There is no other correspondence that I am aware of.
Okay, we'll move on to liaison committee updates. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I have nothing at this time.
I have nothing.
Well, I'm very excited to remind everyone that Lake Central.
It's already on, you're good.
I'm good? Okay. I'm very excited to remind everybody that Lake Central Education Foundation donated $5,000 to help with masks, any type of equipment that are needed in the classroom. So I just think that's a big celebration. That was a huge donation. I think it kind of got lost in the dust at the last meeting, so I wanted to restate it. They're very, very proud to do that for the corporation, by the way. And then for legislative, I'm sure things are going on at the national level, and I try to not get involved in those. But at the state level, if there's anything that's going on, I'm not sure what it might be, other than I think the 80% funding situation, and that's been taken care of. Correct? No, it's not been taken care of. So there is an issue out there with an 80% funding if schools go virtual. I'm sorry, Rob?
I will talk about it in my section.
All right, he's going to explain that further in his section. But that's, I think, the burning issue that's out there right now. Thank you.
And I have nothing for either of my committees either. All right, so with that, we'll move on to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Barrow.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. Seek board approval for the minutes from our executive session on July 30th, as well as our regular board meeting minutes from August the 3rd. Then also ask the board to approve the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received in your packets.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Lestantine, second from Dr. Malkow. Any questions or comments?
Point of order. In my exuberance to get my comment in, I jumped ahead. My comment should appropriately be in this section. So with that correction, so made, that's what I wanted to indicate. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign? Hearing none, motion passes. There are no public comments for our action items. So we will move on to our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Bravo.
Thank you again. And for my first item, you have a handout in front of you. I believe somebody had requested, if not, it might have been me. It's been a fast week. But you have before you a roster of the sections for in-person, and on the back, the e-learning sections. And you can tell at first glance that the e-learning sections are larger than the in-person sections for elementary. And so all the way through Friday evening, we accepted people's requests to change their format from, in most cases it was from in-person to remote learning. In some cases it was the opposite. But it's important that the board understand that we starting today, are not accepting transfers from in-person to remote learning unless there's a COVID-related reason. Because the numbers are getting out of whack, and once we start school, as you know, and students start to get to know their teacher, for us now to convert one of those in-person classroom teachers into an e-learning teacher, we don't think would be fair to all those children that have had that teacher for a couple of weeks. So we are now ready to more stringently enforce what we had hoped to originally do about 10 days ago, and that was to lock people in. It was a confusing summer, no one would argue that, and we polled people several times, and so we were trying to be as customer service oriented as possible. So if people say, why didn't you live by your first deadline or your second deadline, that's the reason. But I just want it to open up to the board so you could see the difference, and you can see now why we feel compelled to sort of freeze it for now. So with that, any questions from the board about those elementary class sizes per section?
So with the e-learning section on the back, then some of those have 25 and 26 students in them, correct? Am I reading this correctly?
If that's what it says. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't studied it, but yes.
All right, okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. All right. The class sizes at 4th grade look a lot better than usual. A little bit higher in some places places, but yeah, still a concern, but. Thank you.
My question would be on the e-learning. Is there any possibility to grab another teacher for one of these grades to lower some of these class sizes? In case we do end up having to close down a building, let's say, and then some teachers have 27, 28, while others have 18, 19. Is that a possibility, or we couldn't find anyone, or no budget? Or what?
If we quarantine a class or the entire building, the teacher will just switch with their kids. So that won't be the problem if we have to close a building, because that means all the teachers would just convert as well.
I apologize, I didn't ask my question properly. So, for example, fourth grade e-learning classes are rather large. Do we not have the capability of getting one more fourth grade teacher to lower those e-learning classes? That's what I'm asking. I apologize.
Well, and I'll ask Teresa to comment here in a minute, but I believe we liquidated all of our candidates that were in the pool last week, as we did add sections, and I'd also ask Teresa to speak to the number of additional elementary sections we have for this year compared to the past, because we did take a pretty decent jump, and we're okay with that. I mean, these are times that require you to do those kinds of measures. But Teresa, can you comment to either of those items?
Sure. We did go through all of our candidates, everybody. There's a teacher shortage. So just as we would interview someone and call them, then they were hired by Crown Point or whoever. So there really isn't anyone left out there. We did add 5 additional e-learning teachers to try and keep those class sizes down. And some of those, and we also pulled teachers from the classroom, so we do have 40 sections of e-learning. So yeah, we're kind of in a pickle, I guess is the best way to put it, combined with the teacher shortage and now not wanting to pull someone out of the classroom.
To answer your question, though, we can continue to look, and I think it's less traumatic for an e-learning student to have a different instructor over the computer than somebody who's in person. We would be rather reluctant to pull somebody from that in-person thing. And I'm going to get into it here in a second, so I'll just go ahead and talk about the reassignment of staff. If the numbers get to a level that we're not comfortable with, we still reserve the right to pull somebody out of a different staff position to reduce those numbers. We did move one dean of students to a middle school English position. We moved a reading specialist into a kindergarten position, and we would do that if we feel like those class sizes are getting too large. Now, if the board says, hey, we get it, and I didn't put it as an action item, but if the board says, we understand what you're trying to do with not letting people continue to switch, we should have some stabilization. However, I had an email just before I came in from a mother who said she's feeling like really sick. This time of year it's odd for her, so she did go get a test today, and she's going to keep her kids home tomorrow. They were in person until she gets her results. So, we're going to be doing an adjustment tomorrow to, have a live look at her. However, we're going to do that, and this is where it's going to continue to be complicated. But, we have to be as flexible as possible in that we do want people to keep children home who they think have been exposed, even if they are not showing any symptoms. If they are a confirmed close contact, which everyone would say you are a close contact if you're living in the same home, then in those cases we appreciate you staying home.
I have a quick question, Teresa. How are we doing with teachers' aides in those classes, like the 3rd, 4th grade levels?
Well, all of our staffing, we're down on our paras, but they are all hands on deck, and principals are using them to get in classes as much as possible. But we are not staffed as fully as we normally are with paras.
Okay, we're looking though for those.
We are always looking.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Teresa, quick question. In the 2nd grade, the differential is a high of 26 and a low of 17. That's 9 students. What's the rationale there?
So in some of the classes, trying to keep kids from the same school in the same class. So then we allowed a little bit more of leeway because I'm hopeful that at some point we can all be back in, and then those kids can go back to the same teacher that they had for e-learning. So
Okay.
that's why you'll see a few differences. And even today, there were some additions and a few people that wanted to switch to in-person, so a few of those are just what naturally happens at the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure that I understood why that number is so much higher for 26 there.
So when I was looking at putting students in, it's always easier for a student to be, even virtually, in a classroom with a teacher that when they go back to in-person, they're going to be with. Also for scheduling, it makes it easier to have kids from the same school rather than pulling sections from each one, though we had to do that in a lot of cases. So that's why there's a little bit of a difference.
I see. Okay. And tell me, how is staffing going with our special needs classes?
Well,
Especially the para-pros that are so important. And
as I stated, paras across the board, we are struggling to get back up to speed with, because we have lost several. So I couldn't say how well we are staffed with special ed, but I do know that we're down. But we are meeting all IEP minutes.
so you're saying the staffing is down, not the student numbers, but the staffing numbers?
So paras, yes, we always struggle to keep our paras, but IEP minutes are being met. That is a priority.
And that's tough. It's a tough situation, and I know that's a rare license, so keep looking.
Okay, I'll move on to my third item then, and it was just another catch-all that I wanted to share some things. I believe over the weekend in a board email, I commented about signage. I found out this morning that the material to make those drinking fountain signs did not arrive at Lake Central till Saturday. They produced enough this morning to push them out to the other 9 schools, and I know that some of the material got put above those drinking fountains at the high school before the end of after the student day, but before the end of the work day for our custodial staff. And that's just a simple sign that says, it's a filling station. Please disinfect your hands after using. There could still be some students who forget to put their head down and get a drink, and as I've said many times, we're not looking to, really get all over children when they forget. They've been sipping out of the drinking fountain for 11 years, and if a senior takes a drink and says, hey, remember, that's not what we're trying to accomplish there. And that's going to be hard for some staff members and for some fellow students and some parents to grasp that we're going to be doing a lot of coaxing this year on some of those types of things. I think our staff members probably will get a little harsher on the wearing of the masks because it's gotten so much attention from some of the medical experts that, especially when you're in movement in crowded areas like the hallways and stuff, that needs to be covering both your mouth and your nose. So I wanted to update the signage piece. That we did get the practice social distance reminders on the floors in the cafeterias as students go to pick up their lunch and return to their classroom. I personally was at the high school this morning and got in the northbound line about 6:48, which is typical. Usually I'm in my office by 5 till 7. It was 7:07 today, so I think we have more drivers, and I would say in the past, when the school year starts, it's always a little slower anyway. So that's the way I come in every day, and I leave home at the same time every day. So I'll be able to know how we're doing, whether we're tracking and getting better or not. Interesting tidbit from Coling, I think the bus ridership was light. I was speaking to a couple of parents, but the first 2 buses, one bus had 7 students, the other had 10. Looked like the next bus, and I was unable to count and have a conversation, but it looked like it was higher. And then when I got to Clark, their ridership looked to be darn near normal, to be honest. They were in pretty good shape over there. I'd like to put in a thank you to the Tri-Town Police. All three towns put extra people at all of our facilities for today, and I think it helps slow everybody down when they see that squad. And at least at the buildings that I visited, people were probably agitated inside, but they were calmly driving and maneuvering around the parking lot.
How was the bus ridership at the high school, do you know?
I don't know, I didn't hear that information, but I know that Christian is going to track that and get us something at the end of the week so we can have an idea of where we are.
Well, because I had several people that stopped me today and said, what's going on at Lake Central? There's hardly any cars in the parking lot. I said, well, no, we're in session. So I'm not sure what that was all about.
I don't know, I mean, it may have been off some, but I didn't think it was off significantly. Sean?
I think what Sean said is that 900 e-learners, so that would impact the parking lot? Okay, all right. And then while we're talking about staffing, and I know this is, I know it's nearly impossible, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, because unless you ask, it'll never happen. So in the middle school and the high school, where teachers are required to do dual platforms, the e-learning and the in-class, is there anything we can do to help them with some of that burden? Trying to monitor the e-learning and also the in-class students. And I know I've asked it before, and I know Sandy brought it up before, so have we come up with any ideas on that? Teresa or Sarah? Terry?
Well, I know the teachers have all been trained on this, and I think that when you add them together, many of the teachers did a pretty good job of doing them with both, because it is the same curriculum. So it's not like they're changing their curriculum, they're just changing their manner of delivery.
Right, no, I know there's no curriculum change, but it's that concept of you've got this screen filled with kids, and you've also got this classroom filled with kids. It's a dual management, it's management to platforms.
And I understand it, and I do feel for our teachers. I know that they've put in a great deal of work in order to make that happen. There just simply was not enough time to blow up the master schedule the way that we would have in order to reschedule separate sections of e-learning and in-person students. We did try to look at areas where the schedule stacked, and we could create a couple of sections of individual e-learning students. They bought out some preps and did some things like that, but at this point, there's really nothing that we can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you. We're recommending that the following be approved, and I did want to draw special attention to two retirees, Rita Chavez and Tina Garcia, with 20 years and 38 years of service. Pretty impressive.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malcolm. Second. We have a second by Mr. Rexel. All right, any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, say the same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. I also wanted to bring to your attention just two small calendar changes. I know there's one in your packet today, and I also sent it to you email this last week. It is that changed the beginning of the school, which therefore changed the end of school. And also January 4th, which was a teacher's record day, will now be teachers and students, since we used that teacher record day on August 11th. This did go to LCTA and they did approve it. It's the same calendar that you had 2 years ago with those two small changes.
Thank you.
Does that- Does that need a vote?
Carrie Reagan, where are you? That is our new high school assistant principal from the dean position. So we wanted to congratulate her especially for coming in and doing an excellent job as a dean, and she is now our assistant principal. So congratulations, Carrie Reagan. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move right on to the Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledger.
Good evening. I just want to give an update on the summer projects. We've pretty much wrapped up everything. We did the Grimmer roof punch list last week. The only thing left there is a few minor items, and plus the manufacturer to go out to a walkthrough with me and the contractor for the final warranty. A couple pieces of metal at Watson, and then the tennis courts are still outstanding. Like, as I said last time, with everything going on here in the state, I did get an email from the company today, and it looks like he's still going to try to get it last week, August, which was the original schedule. So hopefully I'll have some good news next time we convene, and that should be done as well. I just want to echo Dr. Morocco's thoughts with the Dyer PD as well. I was at Protsman and Kaler today, which, as you guys know, if you've been around there, the roads are all torn up. And we've been working with the contractor, Mrs. Sapita and I can't thank them enough. We were out there directing traffic both this afternoon and this morning, and they made things a lot smoother because of their assistance today. So,
How long is that going to be closed down over there? Do you know that?
they have it open in a sense, stone. They're going to be doing curbs this week, but they're going to be in and around Protsman, and they blame NIPSCO. The town's blaming NIPSCO for the delay. But they told me they're going to probably be in and around there through the month of September. Hopefully they're going to be off of Harrison into this week or next week and be out around 2/12 and 2/13.
Question, how's the roof over there at Grimmer?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yes. It's held up nicely the last few storms.
that's good.
Especially we had that, hellacious storm last Monday.
Yeah.
It was very good.
It held up to all that rain and wind? Okay.
Better than the tree out front by the sun.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Mr. Ledger, the site, when I walk at night, oh, by the way, Teresa's light was on again last night in her office, I forgot to tell you, at 9 o'clock, then I know you weren't in there, but that was still on. But when I walk at night, I notice that sidewalk out in front of the, what is it, Doria? Is that your Doria?
Yeah, I said we'd get to that, but with school in session, we can't right now. The contractors are tied up, but he's gonna we're gonna try to get it, depending on how we go here with in-person learning or fall break. But yeah, we couldn't get it done before school started. And it's so messy around here right now with all the buses, but yes, we will get that.
I thank you for explaining that to me, and I guess the reason it came to me last night was I thought, well, are we going to have elections in our building? That's the part
As
I
far
was
as I
thinking
know, here at Protsman and Clark for sure. Larry, do you know about Bibbage? We haven't heard.
Well, the state superintendent did send off a letter last week to the General Assembly asking that, with all the other chaos going on, that they remove all polling places from school sites. That has fallen on deaf ears in the past, so I would expect us to still have polling places in our schools. The one we're trying really hard to get them out of is Bibbage, just because it really is confined quarters and not a separate area for entry and sort of where we can cloister voters. It's a little trickier for us than Clark or Protsman, where it's easy, in the high school, which is pretty easy too, to just keep them down in the K-trap area there. So I think we will have voting in our schools, but for us, we're out now. That's fall break this year, so it's not as critical as in the past.
right. No, my concern when I was walking was the elderly, because I fit that category, and I thought, boy, if you're not watching, it'd be very easy to trip. Will they be using the K-trap room, or?
I would imagine, we offered them in May, the field house to social distance, but they would rather be cool and close than apart and hot, so they like the K-trap setup.
Okay, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. We will move on to our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Thank you. The first item is to seek your approval on the donations that were in your board packet.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall.
Second that motion?
We have a second by Mr. Baxo. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is I just included in your packet the timeline for doing the 2021 budget. In essence, at our next regularly scheduled board meeting in 3 weeks on Tuesday, September 8th, is when I'll be presenting the board my budget presentation. And then we will have our public hearing at the next meeting in September and then adopt in October. So I just want to include those dates in your board packet and just let me know if you have any questions. No questions?
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, it's not on the agenda, but Janice had brought up about the state funding and what's gotten a lot of press recently about this 85% funding for virtual students. And I just want to spend a couple seconds on that in the sense that this 85% rule, which is in law, in Indiana code, has been around for a while. It's mainly was intent for schools that were just online academies that didn't have what you would consider bricks and mortar, so they wouldn't get full tuition per student. Some regular traditional public schools have had some of these concepts where they kind of have a little academy where kids are getting just distant learning, and so they've been getting 85% of the dollars only for those kids that are in that type of program. What's happened now is that throughout the summer, state superintendent and the governor have said that they fully intend to fund kids who are distant learning because of COVID. And then about 3 weeks ago, Senator Bray came out and said, well, just hold on there. This is a legislative issue that is state law, and the governor or the state superintendent can just say, no, you're getting 100%. Fast forward a little bit to the last week. Traditionally, our ADM day is in the middle of September. And that is the basis for our funding for the first half of the year. Then there's a second February count date for the second half. So everything's based on that count date. And the question was, well, on that day in September, kids who are virtual, how is that going to affect their funding? So last Wednesday, the governor came out and said he's going to recommend to the Board of Ed, State Board of Ed, to move the September ADM date to December. Really that kind of became, in my realm, talking with my peers, and thought, okay, well good, this will give them a couple months to kind of figure out what's going to happen, how they could adjust that, take a little temperature of what's going on in the school districts across the state. Maybe there'll be many schools who are out for the first 9 weeks, and then they'll all be back by that time. I had the theory, which may have been wrong, that in November they'll have Organization Day, and they can take action on that day, and then it'll be in December. But I'm starting to lose hope for every given day that passes. They talk about, I was on a webinar, seminar was the ISBA, ASBO seminar on Wednesday, and Dr. McCormick also talked again on Friday, and they were pretty blatant in saying, this is law, and don't necessarily count on it getting changed. So any school district who has students who are receiving less than 50% of their less of their instruction in the classroom, less than 50%, as it stands right now, they're only going to get 80% funding for each of those. 85% as well. So for us, if things didn't change, We have approximately right now about 2,800 kids who are going the e-learning route. We would lose approximately $900 per kid. And so doing some math on that, it would be about a $2.5 million hit to us, which is about 4% of our funding. So there could be some other districts who can have a much larger hit, depending on the percentage of students, or based on how they're set up their e-learning program. I can't really speak for others, and honestly, I just really care about us. So we'll see how it's going to work out here between now and December. But as the legislators continue to say, nothing's going to change until they can take action, and they're not in session until January. So moving this date from September to December really isn't doing anything. It looked to be a victory at first last week, but then it's quick to point out that nothing has really changed. So I'm not going to get into other conspiracy theories of why it's been moved to December in this form, but there could be alternative motives. You just never know. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping that that doesn't go through, or that there's enough pressure put on legislators to take it differently. I mean, this is a pandemic. It's uncharted times. I've talked to the people in our office that if I've got a student who is doing a live look into his high school classroom, he's seeing his 7 different teachers getting the exact same instruction. He just happens to be sitting in a different room than the kids who are actually sitting at the desk. I would make the argument that's not really a virtual learning experience. He's just getting it from a different medium. But I'm not a legislator and I'm not a lawyer and I can't determine what the word virtual means. And no one's going to listen to me anyway. So you can, as much as I would say that, you can have other people who say, nope, they're not there, you're not getting the money. So.
Can I interject there for 1 second? I find it funny that they will cut teachers to 85%, but yet when I asked my doctor if I did a virtual meeting with him, if they were going to cut my charge for my office visit, they said absolutely not. They said there is no medical that's being cut, there is no lawyer visits that are being cut in costs, but they're cutting teachers to 85%. That's just so wrong. I'm sorry, I had to jump in there because I specifically asked different companies that are doing virtual, professional development, all sorts of things. None of them are getting their fees cut. So if you get a chance, please write your legislators, make the phone calls, because that's ridiculous that it's coming out of teachers and education and not anywhere else.
Well, the original concept is if you're just like only an online program or only an online school, you don't have the building, the bricks and mortar, the overhead, so you don't need as much funding. Well, these kids are still here with our teachers, so it is conceptually different in times like these. So how it's interpreted by the key players in the State House, we'll have the next few months to try to work on them and see what can be done. So I just want to kind of give an update. It has changed, but not really. So,
thank you. No, just thank you for that information.
Okay, and then one last thing came down this morning on a better note is that we talked about us looking into refunding some of our bonds because of interest rates being low. We are still moving forward with that. And on Wednesday afternoon, I have a phone call with S&P to do a review of our financial situation. They've sent me the 28 or 29 questions, and there should not be any problem. So we will get a new bond rating or an updated bond rating after the call. It won't be immediate. It will be a few weeks. But just want to keep the board on that we are moving forward, hopefully to sell and refund the bonds sometime in October. So.
Good deal.
Indiana Department of Education, and it really clearly defines what virtual instruction is. We have the virtual charters, the virtual programs, the virtual public schools, and then we have virtual instruction. So I think that you've got a good, I think you're thinking right. I mean, we should fall within that category where we would be.
But the General Assembly gets the ultimate authority to write the definition, not the Department of Ed. So that's where we have a trip up.
And
So,
the
you
general,
know, Indiana code a lot of times can be interpreted 3 different ways by 3 different attorneys. So that's really what's going to come down to. How are they going to say, this is how we define virtual, and Rob's suggestion that virtual may be anytime you're not inside the school building in the seat, that's virtual. That's our fear at this point.
If that were the case, would they have to cut the virtual cost for all the virtual high schools and all the virtual schools that are out there in Indiana right now to 85%?
They're
so
already-
they never?
The ones that are fully virtual, they've only been getting 85% all up to this point in the first place.
Okay.
So,
yeah, based on this definition here, we would be virtual instruction, and so then we would get the 100%. But my question for you is, this will become an issue then after, well, part of the election process, I would guess, because the assembly doesn't go back together again until January, and that's after elections.
after the elections and after the ADM day.
Yeah, okay.
So the ADM currently stands after the election, but before they go into session.
Well,
Wink, wink.
keep us informed about this, so if we, as a board, need to get involved legislatively, we can do that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to our public comments. We ask that you please approach the podium, state your name, your address. So the first one is Ms. Kay Hartz. Okay, Ms. Holly Rodriguez.
Could you, I apologize, could you state your name and address first, please? Thank you.
Shame on you to let those parents bully you, be terrible human beings to you guys, to make you guys change your mind, to go against the public safety of the community, against Morocco, his recommendations, and the public, Lake County Public Health Department's recommendations to keep the kids home. Shame on you for letting those parents bully you into those decisions. That was terrible. Each teacher, principal, vice principal, advisor, anybody that's ever met me and dealt with me with my kids will know that I don't stand down, I don't back down, I am not quiet about things. And especially when it comes to the safety of my children. I am here with them, I talk to them, I make sure that I'm with them every step of the way, teaching my kids and the safety of my kids. I expect the effort I give to be given back. That day, you guys did not show that effort. Clearly, each one of you need to meet me and see what other parents in this district, the standards look like. Because that was not the standards I expect in my district. This was public health and safety, not the opinions of parents and their political standings, while we sat here and watched them talk about how this virus, a global pandemic, is an election infection. That was ridiculous. These schools are open because of politics, not because of safety of the students and the teachers. It's horrible to watch, seeing that you guys voted it on for us to go back into school. And then today, first day of e-learning, we'll say Went a lot better than I expected it was going to. But I'm very worried for the e-learning students. Not one, not two, 3 or 4 of one of my child's teachers ended the class early for e-learners because they had to do special things with the in-class students or different things with them. Is this going to continue to happen? Because if that's going to continue to happen, those kids are going to be left behind. If the schools would have stayed closed, every single kid would be getting the same interaction with the teachers. They'd be getting the same attention. The questions that were asked in this meeting about how the classrooms are not divided correctly between 18 and 26 students. Why are those questions being asked now, after the school opens? Why do I feel like the kids that are e-learning are getting the shitty end of the stick? Because all of this made me truly believe a saying I say in my house and my whole family lives by. Good deeds come to no good. The e-learning parents chose to keep their kids home for the public safety and the safety of the teachers. And we are the ones that are being treated like second-class citizens because we chose to do the right thing.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our board comments and considerations of future agenda items. Dr. Milcom.
Well, thank you for being here tonight, and I think Mrs. Sue's expressed her opinion, and it reflects our opinion about the way the last meeting went. Quite honestly, there were so many positive comments made too, and I hope that we can focus on those and remember those. There's some discussion going around the community about my vote last time we met. And I want everyone to know, when I came on this stage, and I was talking to Dr. Vrocko, that's why the meeting started late, I had no idea how I was going to vote. So if there's a persona that somebody is driving out there that I knew and I didn't tell him, that is not true. For those of you that are in education and those of you that make decisions, you know that we have to look at all the contextual factors. We have to look at the students, we have to look at teachers, we have to look at the community, we look at parents. Ultimately, we're always, or at least I'm always driven by doing what's best for children. Unfortunately, in this situation, when we bring students back into a school building, it has a negative consequence for some of our teachers. They're in a situation where the middle school and high school are being expected to monitor those kids on the screen and also down here, and I just don't know how that's going to work. But our teachers will do the best that they can, and that's what I want to reassure everybody about. From the teachers I've talked to, and many are from schools that are already in session, teachers are not so afraid of the COVID. They're afraid they're going to let their kids down, their students down, because they can't do these dual platforms. I would ask for all parents to be patient. I know the boys and girls that I've heard from and their parents, they were very excited about today. And bottom line, what we did is we made a decision to give people choice. And it's not going to be perfect in today's world, we know that. And moving on to some real positives, I happened to attend the cross-country meet at Lemon Lake on Saturday, and the boys second place, and the girls blew the other teams away. So I guess that meant they got first. They were very, very pumped. All sorts of safety protocols there. Everyone had masks on, even the visitors that were there to watch the cross-country. And I've talked to a lot of the coaches and athletic directors with the DAC, and it sounds like they have some really strict rules and regulations relating to sports, because I have concerns with that, but it sounds like they've gotten together as a group and are rather strong with what they've put together. So, thank you, and I think I heard the band out practicing the other night too, so that was a good thing to hear.
Mrs. Lessentine, excuse me, Ms. Lessentine?
Thank you. So this is not necessarily in response to our speaker today. This is a message that I had planned on stating one way or another regarding that last board meeting, which was absolutely, there were places where if we could have commented, I would have been happy to stand up and comment and protect our teachers, because our teachers are doing one hell of a job out there to educate our students, whether it's remote, whether it's in person, I don't care where it's at. They've been working all summer, just like our other staff members throughout the buildings. So yeah, that did kill me to hear our community disrespect our teachers, but our legislators are disrespecting our teachers, saying that it's only worth 85% now that they're not in a classroom. So that, unfortunately, that's that persona that teachers end up with. We go into this because we love kids and we want to make a difference, not necessarily make a million. Now, with that said, I, for one, was not bullied by a single person that spoke that night. People who know me know I will not be bullied. I will not. My decision came from 2 weeks of talking with community members, doing research, talking with doctors, nurses, and you know what I found? No matter which way I turned, you could find evidence to support either one. And I'm not a doctor, so you're right. My vote did come down to my community, what I felt the majority of my community, and I think we all spoke to thousands of people, I mean hundreds of emails. I know I had hundreds of phone calls, I had hundreds of messages. So this wasn't from those disrespectful people that were in the crowd. That did not change my vote. Just like Janice, when I walked in that door, I didn't know what I was going to vote. I have a text right here for myself saying, since we are allowing extracurriculars to continue, I'm thinking maybe we should reopen the schools under a hybrid model. Not sure which way I'm going to vote tomorrow, just thought I'd give y'all a heads up. So if anyone wants to say that I changed my vote, I didn't. I didn't know which way I was going to vote. Honestly, I thought I would have voted for all remote learning. So when I didn't, I surprised myself. Because like I said, I'm only one vote. If it was my one vote, yes, I would have voted for remote learning. But I'm voting for the town. I'm voting for the majority of the community members. And I'm not saying it was a large majority, but it was enough of a majority that people wanted to open the doors. I wouldn't send my kids in these doors. I wouldn't send them in any school doors. I wouldn't. I would rather be safe than sorry. I'm with you. I don't know what's going to happen, but I would rather be safe than sorry. But I just don't understand how that was even on the agenda, because we have never gone into a board meeting not knowing how everyone was going to vote. That is the only time in 6 years that I came into a meeting and had no idea how my fellow board members were going to vote. So if they did not discuss that with our superintendent, I can't put words in their mouth, but I have proof that he knew that I wasn't sure what I was going to vote for. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. Larry's doing a fine job trying to do what he's doing, but bottom line is I'm not going to listen to all this craziness when we had no problem getting the extracurriculars off the agenda, because everyone fought when it came to extracurriculars. That came right off the agenda. Why wasn't this discussed either? I'm done.
Mr. Baxel?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, I would echo the sentiments of the previous board members here that, the meeting did get out of hand last Monday or 2 Mondays ago, and I apologize to Dr. Bronco and the teachers and the administration here as well, because I should have spoke up that night. I should have taken control and turned on my mic and taken control of that meeting. But now knowing that, like I said, I would echo the sentiments of my board members up here saying there was no intimidation by that group in affecting my vote that night and that evening. You look at it from the standpoint, like Sandy said, you look at your research, you look at what the kids need, you look at the community, then you make your decision based on that. I've had people in front of me before yell in my face, and it didn't affect my vote in one way or the other. So I just wanted to say that, when you sit up here as a board member, you have to make the right decision for the kids. When you take that oath to be a board member, you gotta think of kids
Mr. Marshall?
Thank you, Madam President. From August the 3rd until tonight, August the 17th, it's been a difficult time for me. That night, I had not discussed my vote with anyone. I did reach a conclusion that I was going to side with Dr. Rocco in the virtual learning at that point. Unfortunately, that motion was pulled and withdrawn from consideration, and it was a point of contention during the night, sort of aggravated by the crowd out there, that we moved quickly into a second motion to give people a choice. And that, in essence, became the second motion that came up. I didn't even have an opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, to vote on that choice. I still believe that caution is the best element. I have grandchildren in other school districts throughout the state that have gone into in-class instruction and virtual learning, and I'm a very nervous Nelly over that. However, the vote was taken on August the 3rd, to move forward in what we're doing tonight, in this week, in the weeks ahead. As a school board member, I can't sit here and be throwing darts at that decision. I'm a board member that may not agree, but the consensus is that I'm part of this school board. They voted in the majority, and I have to follow that in my own mind. I may not like it, and hopefully it comes out for the betterment of all. But I just wanted to clear the air in that regard. Thank you.
And I echo with most of what everybody has said up here. So, I've heard positive things today, from bus riding to classrooms to teachers' interactions, and my daughter said everybody, and she means everybody, Mom. It's very kind of her today, so I thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Baracco for board calendar and future activities.
Yeah, so we have a 3-week break, and we also have the Labor Day holiday on the first Monday of September, so that means we'll be on the first Tuesday of September. And if it's okay with the board, we'll move our next meeting back to the LGI, where we will stay for the remainder of the school year unless we anticipate a large crowd or a large recognition.
Dr. Baracco, isn't Labor Day September 7th? So then the first Tuesday, we're talking September 1st, then we're going backward?
No, well, if I said the first Tuesday, I should have said.
It's the second, that's what
The
I'm saying,
Tuesday
it'll be the
after
8th,
first
correct?
Monday. We're after the first Monday.
Okay, perfect. I apologize, that'll be the 8th then.
And so will we continue it with the 7 o'clock time?
Yeah, unless the board at some point chooses to move it back. It's better for our elementary students when we recognize them to get them home at a better time.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion for adjournment. We have a motion from Dr. Malcolm. I'll second that. Second from Mr. Baxo. All in favor?
Aye.